Hello everyone, I hope you're having a very harmonious day and are ready to take a trip with me into what I call a law of one model of the creation. For a long time, since I was a teenager, I got really interested into what the universe was. And it's no surprise that when I got my hands on the law of one, as I was going through my spiritual awakening, I was just amazed by the amount of information that was there that made coherence into what I knew about the universe and science in general, or physics. And combined with metaphysics now is such a complete theory for me to just play with it, because I think most of us humans in modern society miss the point of enjoying the creation as something that needs to put down, in specific notes, and we need to empirically prove that this is true. And we have gotten close, and what I would say, it's beaten into submission nature, to create patterns that, can be predicted. I don't want to go too far into the philosophical notion that we have this fear for randomness, that we want to predict everything. And that's what science is. I mean, science, when you think about it, is obsessed with predictions, is a sort of magical thing that they want to do, or that we all want to do, because it comes down from the idea that we can predict the future. That's all it is. It's clairvoyancy. It's a disguised way to try and predict the future. And we try to do that with the weather. We don't do it very accurate, as we know, but we want to do that with everything else. And that's really what science is. So we don't have to be, concerned with getting things right, because if there's something wrong there, then it invalidates the whole thing. Rather is more like an imaginary process, like when we were children, an imaginary process where we can sort of enjoy what we know about reality. And when we get into mystical understandings of the philosophy of reality, we realize that we don't know anything. And the only thing that we know is awareness. But that's something that is going to come as well into this model at the beginning and at the end, because that's where everything actually comes from and it ends to. So we'll explore that too. And now I'm saying all this because my model is going to use, of course, the Big Bang. It's going to explore what we know in physics of the creation of the universe, and it's going to draw a parallel with what Ra gave us in the law of one, the raw material, and things that we know, concepts that we understand. And again, this is like a very long introduction to just say, sit down, relax, open your imagination, bring in the concepts that you understand, and the ones you don't understand, try to make sense of them as I go through this, because it's a way to enjoy, like I said, the knowledge that we have and the things that we can play with to imagine an evolution of creation, rather than a dead creation that will end up in heat death, as some of the scientists and astrophysicists are predicting. That's their prediction. We have a dead universe, and thankfully we have so much more material to know, and it's inherently in us that we know that there is the creation. The physical creation is not all that there is. So again, I'll attempt this today, and I'm sure, because I'm so fascinated and passionate about this, that I'll keep, just like everything else, and that's the theme of this video, if anything, the evolution of creation. This model will evolve as time goes on. So again, I'll attempt this, and let's see how it goes. We need to start at the beginning of the journey with consciousness. Consciousness is the only thing we know for sure that exists. The rest is an interpretation of our mind of the experiences that we have in reality. I know there's a lot to digest there, but I just want you to take that as the beginning principle of everything. Consciousness is the only thing that there is. This is why when Ra is asked, what is the beginning of the creation or anything, they say we have to start with intelligent infinity, because it's a way to say consciousness is, one, is infinite, and two, is intelligent, because it creates patterns. It is intelligent in the way that we call intelligence, that is it's self-creating. It has free will. That's one of the first distortions, or the first distortion actually, that Ra mentions. And what does free will means? That it wants to do what it wants, so it becomes aware of itself. Infinity becomes aware of itself, intelligent infinity. This is in a parallel of mystical understandings of our true essence is us. We humans are self-aware. We know that we are aware. We are aware that we are aware. So that is the same principle that happens in the creation. And you can see also that our mind is going to create a great analog for this whole model of creation. Our mind is aware of itself. This is intelligent infinity. But we're going macro scale here, or cosmos scale. So we're going to go now from consciousness to the creative principles, which I'll briefly just mention, as this is part of the raw material and I don't wish to recall all of that. And I'm only mentioning it because this is going to prelude the beginning of what we know, the creation, the Big Bang. And so we have the first distortion, which is a creative principle, is free will. We have self-awareness. The creator will know itself, and with that it creates or generates the second distortion, which is love. Love is a creative principle. As the creator knows itself, it loves itself, right? And that is also an analog for ourselves. The more we know ourselves, the more we can love ourselves, and that's the purpose of this self-replicating creator or co-creator part of the universe, us, ourselves. You can keep drawing this analog with us and our minds and how we evolve. So with that, we have the third distortion, which is light. Light is what goes on to create the universe, and this is equated also to intelligent energy, which again is going to play a big picture in this. But before that, let's just go into these three creative principles as consciousness. This is all pure consciousness. There is no time space. There is no light yet until the portion that creates the third distortion, which is light. And from there, as Ra says, everything is all different distortions of light. And that is just, it continues to go on right now. So that is the Big Bang. The light is the Big Bang, in essence, at least in few words. But I'm going to go deeper into what the Big Bang is. So we have consciousness being aware of itself and creating the manifested universe, which now includes space-time, or time-space, as we also know it in the law of one. It's all and one and the same. It's only for experiential purposes that we divide it into two. That is our own free will, again, to have experiences within the creation. And we're going to get into that too. So now in the journey, we are from the timelessness of creation, which is the creator knowing itself and deciding to create something, to the Big Bang. This is the portion where we came out of the hidden, the occult, and now into the physics that we know, astrophysics. This is where physics or astrophysicists would say, we don't know what happened before. All right, so we can just play with that and say this is what happened before. But we do know, they say, and they continue to say, the Big Bang. The Big Bang, they explore it and they explain it in ways that are so consonant with the law of one. And what we have is that as light is created, light is the basic particle that exists. I know there could be said a lot of things about neutrinos and other fundamental particles, which are necessary to talk about here, but light is the fundamental particle that exists. And as light is created, we have intelligent energy. And I'll explain intelligent energy in a little bit. But light is, for sure, it is fundamental also because there is, Ross says, and I wanted to mention this, Ross says also that the basic entity is what we call the photon. And photons are really the basis of light. So photons being the first, the only particle, that's what I meant to say before when I mentioned light being the fundamental particle. The photon is the fundamental particle. That is the fundamental, or the one being that exists. The first being that exists is a photon. Now I'm going to draw a little bit of metaphysics here, which is not really metaphysics. It really is overlapped with science, because recently two scientists called Nima Arkani Hamed and Jaroslav Trinka, I think it was around 2013, they found something phenomenal. And for that, we need to go a little bit into the boring side of a little physics and quantum physics, but it's going to make sense. It's going to have a beautiful model of the fundamental particle, which is the photon, and how it equates also into our metaphysics and our understanding of reality in the sacred geometry department. Nima Arkani Hamed and Jaroslav Trinka found a geometrical pattern from the Feynman diagrams. And the Feynman diagrams are from Richard Feynman, a quantum physicist from the 20th century. One of my favorite characters of physics in general, because he was such an amazing person. And I can talk about him for a while, but he created the Feynman diagrams, which are, and I don't know much about this. In fact, I don't even touch the tip of the iceberg on this. But I know this was, again, playing with quantum physics and seeing what happens to particle when you bombard them, when you smash them, when you take them out of their orbits, so to speak. And these were diagrams of what the particles did, their different motions. And again, this is, I wish I could know more about this, but I don't. However, these two fellows, Nima Arkani Hamed and Jaroslav Trinka, they play with this until the point that they created something called the amplituhedron. And this is physics. This is a proven physics already, that the Feynman diagrams are modeled into what is called the amplituhedron. And now the amplituhedron is, when seen from a geometrical perspective, a quarter of what we call a star tetrahedron, the Merkaba. The star tetrahedron, again, it's two tetrahedrons, one facing down and one's facing up. They're crossed together and they're merged. There's so much esoteric knowledge to talk about here, but I don't have also the background on this. But I know if you guys are familiar with this, you can go on for a while. The Star of David comes from here and so on. But I want to keep going with the physics and the Big Bang and the creation before I get too far into what this all means for people who are into metaphysics and esoteric knowledge. So from this point, we know that the particle of light, the photon, is a geometrical pattern. And geometry is everywhere. So this amplituhedron gives us that. Now we know that there is a pattern, to a geometrical pattern that describes intelligence. And from intelligence we can derive that there is something beyond. We know that as consciousness. So consciousness is obviously creating this. And we know in physics now that it is true. Quantum physics. So from here, now we have the Big Bang creating old energy. It's all pure energy. Scientists are obsessed, of course, with the possibility of finding all the particles that there exist and all this stuff. And that's fine. However, we know from quantum physics that pure energy is all that exists. Pure energy. It has cooled down, let's use that word, it has cooled down into different particles. But we can also see this as consciousness, as we will explore, consciousness going through different motions to create a multiplicity out of infinity. Multiplicity meaning diverse, apparent, illusory aspects of itself. And this is energy. But energy is not just dumb and moving around randomly. It is intelligent, and this is what Ra calls intelligent energy. I want to call intelligent energy the intelligence behind the fundamental particle, the photon. It's that intelligence that moves the photon the way it does. But it's not the intelligence secluded to that specific pattern. It's the intelligence that is creating all the infinite amount of patterns that it can create. And from here you can start to see the seed of the creation from intelligent energy and what we know as light or energy. So that's why intelligent energy is quite important, because it's going to create the photon, and it's going to create quarks, and it's going to create atoms, and it's going to create molecules, and so on. But let's not go ahead and go into that yet. Let's go into the next part, which is what Ra calls the grand central sun. The grand central sun is, to me, the primordial sun also, which Ra as well mentions. The primordial sun is the beginning, is the Big Bang, is that huge mass of energy that decided, let us create more patterns. Let's not just stay with this. This is so much fun. Let's create more of this. And from here, it spreads out into galaxies. I mean, with the Big Bang, we can go into the process of how the galaxies are created. And it's a beautiful model. I believe they're quite right in analyzing matter as they now understand it. And they're missing, of course, the factor or the element of consciousness here, because they are assuming that the creation is some random thing that just happened to manifest itself. It's self-manifesting, and it's not intelligent. So they're taking away consciousness and intelligence out of the creation. That's why obviously the models are so deficient, and they need to include something that they are ignoring, which is again consciousness and intelligence, primordial intelligence. But we know better, at least in that way, in our imagination, because we can't prove it to the obsessed scientists with particles that ignore their own self-conscious being. But so we go into the expansion of the universe now, as we know it, the observable universe, and it goes into galaxies. We know this as logoi. The logos being the grand central sun. This is what Ra calls, the logos is not intelligent infinity. It's a manifestation of intelligent infinity, because it created the what we call energy and everything that we explored already. Intelligent infinity is the potential. It draws, intelligent energy draws from it taps from intelligent infinity. Intelligent infinity is consciousness. It's infinite consciousness. And this is permeating, of course, all of the creation, because it is the creation. So the grand central sun, being the primordial sun or logos, creates versions of itself and says, from these patterns that I have, and I'm just putting words, I'm humanizing the logos, but let's just put it that way for our imagination. The main logos says to the other logoi, which are now galaxies, let's make these patterns, but you have free will to modify them. And now all the galaxies have what Ra calls archetypes that can be moved around and infinitely create different patterns. Okay, these patterns are also managed by the galaxy, and it sets forth for all the stars to create their own archetypes or move their own archetypes. So say we have 16 archetypes in one galaxy, and let's concentrate now on one galaxy. All galaxies have their own, they all have the same archetype that was granted by the grand central sun. So from the grand central sun, all galaxies got, say, the archetypes, but the galaxies were able to move these archetypes or tinker with them, play with them, to say, okay, we want to set the Milky Way now is going to have these patterns. But these patterns are also archetypes. Let's call them sub-archetypes, that now every single star will have, with their own free will, to create what we now call the octaves, and we'll get to that. But from here, the archetypes are used by the stars, again modified from the galaxy and sub-modified by the stars to create different patterns of movement and growth. That's where we're going to. Growth, evolution. Now, the experiential patterns or the experiential, say, movements that we have in the creation are only done within an octave. This is where the star, say our sun, created an octave of experience, and this is all the 7 densities that we know from beginning to end. So what happens now at the moment of creation of an octave? We have the star creating the archetypes and saying all potential possibilities are created within the octave. It's almost like the infinite amount of patterns that can be followed by intelligent energy through the octaves are created. However, the experiences are not done yet. So the star creates all the patterns. It creates the matrix for the patterns to move, the energy, intelligent energy, and that is the octave. All densities are created. From the bottom, I would call the bottom because it's the beginning of the evolution, it creates the planets. The planets are intelligent energy coalescing into what we call matter. Intelligent energy, again, is just it's energy. We can see it as photons, having different patterns of geometrical arrangements to create the first elements. There is a timeless portion of this manifestation of what we call matter from the star as this energy coalesces and creates what is called our planet, our physical planet. Well, the first entities that are created here is what we call the elements. This is very simple, and this is why the ancients, especially the Greeks, they used these elements as the fundamental particles of existence. Heraclitus, I believe, used to say fire was the main element that created everything. Thales used to say, I believe it was water, and I forgot who said air, maybe Anaxagoras, or was it Anaximenes? I forgot. But see, they play with these ideas, And this is also because, as Ra mentioned, Thales and Heraclitus were impressed with the law of one, as they had, I suppose, a different way to see things, and they wanted to have this information. But coming back now to the planet. Now we have a planet forming, and this planet is just, it's very parallel also with the creation model of what we call conventional physics, because they say that we had a very chaotic planet and random energy, and we had all kinds of bombardments from meteors and everything colliding and so on, which is true. This is the way that first density is formed, the first density of experience. And from here, intelligent energy is already having an experience. This is consciousness having an experience in the most primitive form of manifestation between space-time, which is already created within the octave, and space-time is now realizing itself, and the energy in space-time is knowing itself. So through these patterns of motions, it's going to create water and earth, which I call the heavy elements, or the heavy entities, the first entities, and also air and fire, the light entities, first density entities. Ra says that air and fire teach earth and water to move, and we can see the logic in this, because, and you can see also in yourself, that you are made of these four elements. Physically, you're made of earth and water in its different manifestations, from proteins and carbohydrates as fuel, and we have fibers of all type of muscle and tendons, but they're all a combination of earth and water. We also breathe, because that is the oxygen that we receive, and that air that flows is bringing also nutrients, which is the first nutrient that we need, oxygen, to live. And we have fire. We are fire as well. Thermogenesis. This is how we live. This is how we move. This is how I'm talking right now, because of thermogenesis, a process in the cells of all my body and all the organs and my tissues that are creating this movement so I can speak. Is thermogenesis, is the fire that makes anybody move. So you can see how we're the four elements in a very intricate and complicated or complex arrangement. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First density is this four elements, and they go on to create the second density, because there is a calling, a natural calling from consciousness to move and grow. These are the foundations for what we call life, sentient beings. And we have to go to the DNA. DNA being the most basic function of life on the planet. This function is also guided by geometry, as it has been proven decades ago actually in observational studies, and how the movement of the RNA, I believe it is, has again a geometrical pattern, which is none other than the tetrahedron. This time it's not a star tetrahedron, but it is a tetrahedron. And the different ways, this is the amazing part of this research, is that the tetrahedron can only move in 20 different positions to create different patterns, and those patterns are the amino acids that create life. Protein are made of these 20 amino acids. So this shaping of the RNA moving in different patterns, tetrahedron patterns, to create amino acids, you can see the same principle that created the photon now acting on it is at this point a macro scale compared to the photon, because it's molecules now. So molecules form from atoms, which are created again from energy, which is the photon, and now growing and moving into different infinite amount of possibilities for bacteria and one-cell organisms, all the way to plants and animals, which are the most complex forms of life that we have in second density. These are the ones that eventually will want to go on in the densities to third density. And in third density, what we have, the difference is that is self-awareness. And from self-awareness, we come to us, which is an animal body instrument that is self-aware. This is where the spirit is, it's creating the possibility of knowing itself. This is where spirit is, as Ra says, the second density is inspirited with self-awareness. And from self-awareness, the only thing that can come out of the animal perspective is that we are consciousness. And this is where evolution, it doesn't end here, because we have other densities of consciousness to explore, but we cannot explore those densities of consciousness by thinking as animals or thinking the universe finite. That is fine. It's actually fine. It is finite, our way of thinking. It will be recycled. This consciousness will be recycled into third density once again. And this is where I take the individuality of the person saying, will I graduate to fourth density? Well, is your consciousness as you know it able to graduate into fourth density? That's the question. Are you able to perceive the universe beyond the physicality that we believe is the limitations of the creation? If so, then you have contributed your consciousness and your intelligence to the creation, to beyond the physics. This is where the challenge lies. Individually, we need to contribute as a grain of sand to the vast sea of consciousness that we are by voting, basically. Yes, I am self-aware and I know for sure, I live it within me, that there is more to this. And what this yields is unconditional love. Fun enough, right? That is fourth density work. Unconditional love and understanding that you and everything else is one being, is one creation. And beyond that is just balancing this one love. It gets more complex and esoteric or metaphysical. That is not my purpose to make this this content and this story. But you can see how it goes beyond that, because it is in us to see the creation beyond the limitations of the animal awareness, of limitations, of finitude. And from this, we can know that we are consciousness. The only thing that we know is consciousness. And this is where I end this tale, this story, this evolution of the creation from the timelessness state, which is pure consciousness, again into the realization that we are that consciousness in evolution. This is why the mystical say traditions like Buddhism or Hinduism begin and start in consciousness, because they know, they already decodified or decode this reality as pure consciousness, and beyond that is just our illusory Maya that we experience for the purposes of having fun, just enjoying the creation. This is not a grim creation as some other religious practices or philosophies have tried to convince us that we are. This is not a grim creation. The Creator is not a judgmental and very angry person or individual looking down on us. It is us. We are the creation. And so this is the moment of realization in our society, in our era, to know that we can choose. This is not by no means this is forced on anything. It is the privilege of a few to continue to believe in the animal perspective of limitation. That is fine. That consciousness will be recycled into its own primitive and inferior portions of development of consciousness, which are second and third densities of consciousness. All those who want to vote into, and this is why the key word is faith. You have to have faith. This is also why in the previous octave, they realized that they needed a veil for individual entities to go on beyond the knowing and going to faith, to know that this is the true meaning of the word faith in all religions and other belief systems. Faith is simply knowing without proofs that there is something beyond. We have been given a gift, a cheat sheet actually, which is amazing, and that is the heart. You cannot describe love. You cannot empirically prove love. You cannot write essays about love. You cannot ever explain it. However, you can feel it. And if you can feel it, you know it. So if I were to ask you, do you love your wife, your son, your husband, your boyfriend? You may say yes, and I say, prove it to me. And you can't. Will I say, well, you definitely don't love it, or don't love them? No, nonsense. I know that you love him because I can see how you love people. So we don't need to get proof. We need to feel it. And these feelings of knowing the creation as one being is within us. We yearn for that. Scientists, most than anybody, yearn for this unified theory of everything. All they're looking for is unity in everything. And that is through their hearts. But they're looking through the mind, through the intellectual mind. And that's why they can't find it. So it is unto us to really go into the heart, which is the center, the nucleus of our beingness. And all answers really lie there, not because intellectual answers will pop out, even though they could, but because in the feeling of knowing that beyond the provable universe, we are consciousness. All there is consciousness. That can be proven, at least in a philosophical standpoint, it can. But we know simply that consciousness is all there is. And if you close your eyes and take away every single thought that you've had in your life that has changed, every single experience, every single identity, you will keep realizing that you are aware. That doesn't go away. Thoughts, ideas, concepts, people, things, they all vanish. That's all Maya. It's illusion. But awareness is always present. By you knowing that is your awareness. And by you knowing your heart and your feelings, you know that there is definitely something beyond this. And that beyond is the origin and where we're going to. Because this whole octave is to be explored to the source of everything. And that is the whole creation. So I really, really hope you enjoy this journey and this trip with me, because this is what I gave you a glimpse of what goes in my mind for idle moments, sometimes in meditation where I'm distracted. These are my distractions in meditation actually, which I try not to get into, because I just want to I just want to be aware that I'm aware, to be honest. But I'm getting there, I'm getting there, and I know that's not a proper way of saying, I'm getting there in meditation, but this is what's happening, and I need to share this. So hope you enjoy it as usual, and I have nothing else to say, but thank you so much for sharing this with me, because by you listening to it and enjoying it, you are sharing it with me, and we're both resonating. So I'm very grateful. I love you because I am you and you are me. And I'll see you in the next one.